and then share my hover cam, and we'll start in 2.1 graphs of equations. And y'all, I'll say this, for all the graphs I'm going to do them by the table method. I'm going to set up an X and Y table. I'll pick out some X values to put into the equation and get my Y values that way. Once I got those, I'll graph them on a sheet of paper for you. And then I'll also show you how to do these on the TI-84, okay? So the first one that I'm going to do is going to be a linear or a line graph. So that one I'll have y equals 4/3 x minus 3. All right, so like I said, you're going to set up a little x and y table on these. So anytime you got a equation in this form and you just got the x variable here, this is linear. And in MATLAB, when I get to drawing that one, it'll be a tool with 2 points on it, looks like a line. So I'll show you by hand and then I'll show you an example in MATLAB, okay? All righty. So I need two x values that I can put into this table and get some y values on it. So y'all, the easiest number to pick every time I do a graph, I pick a 0. Because y'all, 0 is easy to multiply by a fraction. So let's plug the 0 in for the x and get our y value. So we'll have y equals 4/3 times 0 minus 3. So y'all remember order of operations tells me I got to multiply before I can subtract. So 4/3 times 0 is 0, and then bring down my minus 3. And y'all, that y value, 0 minus 3, gives me a minus 3. So for the x is 0, y will be negative 3. Now, I'm going to show you a trick I do. Anytime I got a fraction in front of the x, my second x value will be the same as that denominator. Because if you make the x the same as the denominator, I can cross that out. So y'all, let me show you what I mean. Let me put a 3 in there. That'll give me y equals 4/3 times 3 minus 3. So the reason I use 3 when I got a fraction, this 3 will cancel that 3, making that a 1. Now, I could have used a 6, because 6 divided by the 3 would have made that a 2. So any multiple of 3 cancels out the fraction. So now I got 4 times 1, which is 4, minus my 3. And y'all, 4 minus 3 gives me a 1. So when x is 3, y will be 1. Now, y'all, if you like finding common denominators and stuff like that, you can use other numbers, okay? See, if this would have been a 1, 4/3 times 1 would have been 4/3. And then I would have had 4/3 minus 3. Well, to do that subtraction, I would have to find a common denominator and all that fun stuff. So, y'all with me on that one? So, let's see. Any questions? Let's see. I don't see nothing in chat. So, I'm going to plot these 2 points. So let me write my points here. I had 0, -3 was my first point, and then I had 3, 1. So that was my 2 points. And then I'll show you in MATLAB in just a second how to graph this. So 0, -3, remember, this is my X and my Y. X's go left or right. Unless it's 0, it stays right there. And then the Y's will go up if they're positive, down if they're negative. So since my X is 0, I stay right there at 0 in the center. Actually, the center is the 0 for the ups and the left and rights, okay? So I'm at 0 and then -3 for the Y. So from 0, I'm going to go down 3, 1, 2, 3, and put my first point. All right, so that's my first point. My second point was 3, 1. So since the 3 is positive, I go right 3. And then since the Y is positive, I go up 1. So my second point is over 3, up 1. Yo, at that point in MATLAB, it is going to come through and draw the line for you, okay? All right, y'all, so let me get something ready for us here. All right, so I'm going to share the MATLAB screen. Now, let me see something real quick. So it gave me a different problem than the one I did. So what I'm going to graph is actually the one I did, okay? All right, so y'all should be seeing problem 1 here. So ignore what they gave me. I'm going to show you how to graph what we had. So on this one, I would click the enlarge graph. You're going to use the 2-point line tool up here. The second one up there, I'm going to highlight it. And then you come over here and graph your points. So 0, -3. Y'all see the little yellow band? If you look in the right side of that yellow band, it'll show the point as you put it. So right now I'm at 0, 0, so I need to go down 3. So there's my 0, -3. I would click that point. And then my second point was 3, 1. So starting back in the center, I'm going to go right 3, up 1. So that band is showing 3, 1 now. Click that one, and then you save it. So then it'll actually put the line on there for you. Now, it's going to be wrong because I didn't do the problem they gave me. But y'all, what 2 X's do y'all think I would pick for that problem that's showing with that 3/2 X minus 3? So y'all got any guesses on what I would pick for my 2 X's on that one? Oh, so y'all are a little quiet tonight. So I would still use 0 because 0 times 3/2 is 0. All right, so let me see what this chat's saying. So 0 and 2, perfect. That's exactly the 2 I would use, y'all. 0 because it's easy to multiply. 2 because it would cancel the fraction. And I would basically have 3 minus 3 to figure out my y value, okay? All right, y'all, watch this. We got a nice, powerful calculator. So the graph on the calculator, you're going to hit y equals. And up here on y1, I'm going to actually put in what it equaled. So it equaled 4/3. So y'all, if I want it to look like a fraction, watch what I do. I hit this green alpha button. I hit y equals, and it gives me ND. So I just hit enter for that. it puts up the fraction notation. So then I can put my 4 on top, arrow down, put in my 3, and then arrow right. Now, the quickest way to get the X is the button right by the green alpha button is a XT omega N. If you click that, it'll put an X up there. And then I just need to do -3. So I've got my calculator showing the exact equation. Y1 equaled 4/3 X minus 3. So let's look at a graph and see what it looks like. So y'all, there's our graph we just did. And if you want to see some points on this, if you hit the blue second button, then the graph button, it'll pull up the table. So those, let me get down to some numbers I was using. See these, at 0, we got -3. Now watch this. At 1, I got a fraction. 2 give me a fraction. But there's my 3, 1. 4 gives you a fraction. 5 gives you a fraction. 6 has a 5. So if you notice the multiples of 3, even -3, that's a multiple of 3. It also gave me nice numbers to actually graph. So Darren, you talking about the input for the calculator where I put in the equation?
Oh, yes, sir. I
Okay. All righty. So I would go back here. Let's clear that. So first thing what I did there, since this had a 4/3 as a fraction, I wanted to put it in fraction notation by hitting the alpha, the green button, and then the y equals. Option number 1, n over d is fraction, numerator over denominator. So I just hit enter for that one since it was highlighted. And it brought up my fraction notation. So that was the 4/3. So I put my 4 in, go down and put my 3 in. Then you got to arrow it right to get that cursor out from on the bottom of the fraction. So since we use X's a lot in here, the quickest button is the button right to the right of the green alpha button. It's got an XT, a 0 with a line through it and an N. If you click that, since we're in function mode, it puts that X up there. And then y'all did the -3. Now y'all notice this minus on the bottom in parentheses, only use it when you got a negative number. When you're subtracting, you got to use that subtraction button, okay? All right, so Darren, then I just hit graph to look at what my graph better look like in MATLAB when I'm done. And then if you want to use this to find your numbers to plot, if you hit second graph, since it says table in blue, anything that's in blue, you hit the blue second button and then that button, and it pulls up, in this case, our table. And then y'all just zoom through here and pick out 2 points that you want to plot. Go to MATLAB, plot them 2 points, and then you'll get your graph, okay? So, question on that.
Once you put it in, how did you get back to the graph?
Once I put in my equation,
Well, how did you get off the graph to go back and you scroll down to see, yeah, that. How did you get back to that
okay,
from the graph?
so if I'm on graph right here and I want to see that table, I hit the blue button and then the graph. So you should see that blue table above the graph button there. It says table in blue. So by hitting the second and then the graph, it pulls up the table. And then you just up and down through that and get 2 points that y'all want, okay? And then if I want to get back to the y equal stuff, I hit that y equal button on the top left, and it gets me back to my equation. So that makes sense?
Yes.
All righty, y'all. So Let's see how y'all do on this one. So this next one has a 6y plus 3x equals 3. So it still just has the x in it, so it's still going to be a line graph. But y'all, this one's tricky. In order for me to set my table up and sort of figure out what numbers I want to use, or if you want to use the calculator on it, you got to solve that for that y. So I want this to be y equals something on that right side, okay? So if it's not solved, y'all's number 2, you will have to solve for the y. So y'all, what move could you do to get this 6y by itself on that left side? So let me ask you this. How could you move this 3x to the other side of this equation? And y'all, here's the trick on those. So let me see, my chat's lighting up. Okay, so I'm going to do one thing before I divide that 6. I will divide that 6, but that's usually my last step. So now let me show you what I would do to this. Since I don't want the x's over here on the same side with the y, I'm going to move it to the other side by doing the opposite. So since this 3x is being added, I'm going to come in here and subtract 3x from both sides. So now that'll bring down your 6y. This stuff cancels out on that left side. So all that's left on the left side would be my 6y now. Now, 3 and negative 3x, those are not like terms. You cannot add them together. So, if you want them to look like the y equals mx plus b, if you want them to look like the slope-intercept form of a line, like they did in this first one, you would put your negative 3x first and bring down your positive 3. Now, it's not wrong if you put 3 minus 3x here. Either way, I usually just put my x's first so that they're in this form, okay? Alrighty, now, let's see, was it Hayden? Now I'm going to divide everybody by 6. So y'all, multiplication and division are distributive. So if you do it to one term, you got to do it to every term. So come in, divide everybody by 6. Okay, so look here. 6 divided by 6 equals 1. So that's going to give me 1y. I can't really divide that negative 3 by 6, but can we reduce that fraction? And y'all, negative 3 6 will definitely reduce to a negative 1/2. So basically, to reduce a fraction, since 3 went into both of these numbers, I divided the top by 3 and then the bottom by 3. And then y'all look here, I got a plus 3x, 3 over 6. Well, same fraction, that's going to reduce to a 1/2. So now I can pick some X and Y's. Now this one, y'all, ain't as simple as this one because up here I could cancel the fractions and I had a whole number and a whole number. Here, no matter what I do to this fraction, I still got this fraction sitting right here. So I would still use 0, but y'all look here, when you put in a 0, You get negative 1/2 times 0 plus 1/2. Negative 1/2 times 0 is 0 plus 1/2. So I got no choice for that y value to be a 1/2. And I'll sort of show you how to graph that one in MathLab also. Now, my second number, I got a negative 1/2 here and a positive 1/2 here. If I want to be able to just add them two together and get a 0, can I make that x a 1? So if that x is a 1, I'll get y equals negative 1/2 times 1 plus a positive 1/2. So y'all did that, so that would stay negative 1/2 when I multiplied those, plus that positive 1/2 and a negative 1/2, positive 1/2, give me 0. Okay, but this one is sort of tricky, so I just picked two numbers that I thought would add and give me nice answers here. So let me show you how you would graph that one. So I'm sure it's not going to have the same values I had. So I would click the enlarge graph, and y'all, my numbers were 0 and 1/2. So if you watch me when I grab the line tool, I'm sitting at 0. Up here, it's going by halves, 0.50. So 1/2 as a decimal would be 0.5. So it's going by halves on here, okay? So 0 1/2 would start at 0 and go up to 0.5. Click that. And then my second one was 1 0. So I'd go right, 0.5, and then to 1 0. So when you got fractions like that, it'll break the graph into intervals going by halves, okay? And then you would save that. So on the calculator, I'm going to clear all that out. So I'm at y equals, I would clear that. I would do my fraction, alpha y equals, enter. So that was negative 1/2. So remember, you got to use the negative button down here on the bottom. So do negative 1, arrow down, put in your 2, arrow right, we're going to put in our x by hitting that XTO button. And then I had plus 1/2. So I'm going to do my plus. All right, y'all, hang on 1 second. I got to see who just logged in. Last name Burnett. I'm not seeing you on my row. Did you just get added, or is this someone else? Or Alicia Burnett? Who are you?
Hey, sorry. Using my wife's computer and it logged me in as her. My name's
Uh,
Jahan Montazari.
okay, John, I got you. I got you. Good to go.
Sorry for being late.
I'll make a note of that. So if you do that again, I'll know who you are now.
Oh, yes, sir.
Okay, no problem. All right, y'all. So back to I was on calculator, I think. All right, y'all. So now I had another fraction because it was plus 1/2. So I'm going to do the alpha y equals again. Hit enter for n over d, and then put in my positive 1/2. So arrow down, put in my 2, Alrighty, so if I want to see the graph, I hit graph. And y'all, there's that graph we just did. And remember, if you want to see some values that you can plot in MATLAB, hit second graph to look at the table. And so y'all, I went down to, here's my 0, 1/2 I used. There's the 1, 0. But y'all, you could have did 2, -1/2, 3, -1. You could have picked numbers that avoided fractions, 1, 0, 3, -1, and so forth, okay? So any way you want to get them points, either by hand or um, using your calculator, okay? All right, y'all, so that's the world of straight lines. So those first two will be like you'll see in support also, okay? So here's college algebra only. Y equals x squared. X squared graphs are quadratic, and when we graph them, we need a 3-point quadratic tool. And we'll call this shape a parabola in the future, okay? Now, on the x squared graphs, any three numbers that you want to square will work for your x values. Okay, you can do 0, 1, 2, 1, 2, and 3. It don't matter. Just remember, though, you're squaring these numbers, so if you pick big x values, you're going to have big y values. Right? Even a 5. 5 times 5 would give you 25 for your y value, okay? So I'm going to pick three numbers that are easy to multiply. And I'm doing a -1 because I want y'all to see what happens on these x squared graphs, okay? So let's put in a -1 first. Now, on a calculator, when you put in negative numbers for your variables, put negative numbers in parentheses, okay? So now the calculator knows this is -1 times -1, which is going to give me a +1. Any number you square will be positive, okay? All right, y'all put 0 in. So since it's not negative, I don't need parentheses. But y'all, 0 times 0 is 0. And then let me put a 1 in for x. And y'all, 1 times 1 is 1. So look at the symmetry on the x squared graph. The negative numbers gave me the same value as the positives. So -1 and 1 both gave me a 1 for my y value, okay? All right, so by hand, if you was doing that one by hand, let me get my points here. -1, 1. I had 0, 0. And I had 1, 1. All right, also by hand, -1, 1. We'll go left to -1, up 1. 0, 0's right here in the origin. So there's my 0, 0. And then 1, 1, right 1, up 1. So that should be similar to what my parabola is going to look like in MATLAB, okay? So y'all, let's show the calculator real quick. Go to y equals, clear that out. So x squared, I'm going to hit the x button. And to square it, over here on the left side, left of the comma is an x squared button. If you hit that, it'll square your x automatically. Okay? So we want to look at the graph. So y'all, there's my little parabola we had. And then once again, if you want to see the table values, hit second graph, and there's some points. So let me go up a little bit. Look here, -3 and +3 both had 9. -2, +2, both had 4. There's my -1 and 1. They both had 1 and so forth. Alrighty, then let's go to Math Lab and we'll try one in Math Lab. I'll show you how to graph it. So that'd be like y'all's number 3. All right, click the enlarge graph. Now remember, I'm not doing their problem. I'm doing mine, which was just x squared. So up here, you grab this 3-point quadratic tool, and then you just plot the 3 points. So I had -1, 1. I had 0, 0. And then I had a +1, 1. Yo, there's my little U-shaped parabola. So I would save that. Okay. All right, questions. All right, y'all. So next. So I'm going to skip 4. They do one pretty much like the x squared. They just have an x squared plus 5 for the next one. So it don't matter what 3 numbers you pick, but since it's an x squared, you're going to still use the quadratic tool. So I'm going to go over one like this one. Y equals -2 over x. So this one, when you do it on Math Lab, so let me see what they got on Math Lab for us. Let's do this one they got. So this is -3 over x. But look, it's got 4 pictures. So all we got to do is graph this on a calculator and pick one of these 4 pictures here, okay? And y'all, I'll tell you what. No matter what that top number is, these graphs will all be sort of similar here. So let's go to the calculator and do -3 over x instead of -2 over x. So I'm going to go to y equals. Clear that out. So remember, if you want it to look like a fraction, hit alpha y equals and enter. Put your -3 on top, arrow down, and put your x. And y'all, I don't even need the table, remember, because I don't need no points to plot. I just got to pick one of them pictures. So I'm just going to hit graph and see which one it looks like. So it looks like it's on the top left section over here and in the bottom right. So we would go to Math Lab and choose the one that looked like that. So mine looks like D, right? Top left had that, and then the bottom right. So y'all, that one you're just picking a picture and moving on. So since we actually did their problem, you'll come down here, check your answer, and it'll say nice work, okay? So any questions at all yet? Are y'all good? All right, y'all. So tell me what this one is. Y equals, it's a bar and then an x minus 3 and then another bar. So y'all, what's these bars actually represent on this function? So let me see if any of y'all are answering me on chat. So, oh, I got a chat in. Absolute value, good job. And remember, anything in absolute value, when you take the absolute value, will come out positive, okay? The only way to make absolute values negative is if you had a negative in front of it. All righty, this graph is a 2-point absolute value tool. Now, this one is very, very picky. Because when you click on the absolute value tool in that little yellow band, it says plot the vertex. The vertex is this little V point here. That has to be the first point you plot. Now, the way you find that vertex point is the first x that you pick has to make this equal 0 inside the absolute value. So the first x we pick has to make it equals 0 inside the absolute value. So y'all knowing that, what's the first x I'm picking? What is going to make that a 0 inside there?
3.
3, perfect. Right? 3 minus 3 is 0. So y'all, the first x is going to be a 3 there. So that when you plug it in, 3 minus 3, you work the inside first. So 3 minus 3 would give you absolute value of 0. And the absolute value of 0 is 0. So notice, the very first point you plot, the y value has to be 0, okay? Now, once I plot that vertex, I can pick any number as my second point. So if you want to put a 4 here, a 2 here, a 1, it does not matter. So y'all, what y'all thinking on that? And just don't give me a number real big because I don't want my graph to be drawn real big, okay? So, what y'all think? 4 will work, right? So let's put a 4 in there. That'll give me 4 minus 3. All right, working inside the absolute value, 4 minus 3 is 1. And the absolute value of 1 is 1. Okay? All right, so there's your 2 points. So let's see. Let's do the calculator real quick, and then we'll knock out the math lab. So go to y equals. I'm going to clear everything. Now, you don't see an absolute value button on here. So here's how you're going to get to absolute value. You're going to hit the math button on the left side under the green alpha that says math. Hit that. You're going to arrow right and highlight the NUM column. And y'all look, number 1, ABS. That stands for absolute value. So hit enter. It's going to pull up the 2 bars up there. And you'd put in x minus 3. And then I'm just going to arrow out of that. Okay, so absolute value, math, arrow right, highlight number, and it's the first choice you got. So let's hit the graph button and see what it's going to look like when we're done. And y'all, there's that 3, 0 right where my vertex was. Okay. Also, you can use the table. But y'all remember, if you use this table, look here. You better find the y value down here that is 0 for your first point. Okay, on this absolute value graph, you got to find the one where the y value is 0. But y'all look here. On both sides, you got 1, 1, and then 2, 2, 3, 3. So these graphs are symmetric about that vertex point, okay? All right, yeah. Oh, we got to go graph this one, right? So let's go to MathLab. I'm sure theirs ain't the same. Nope, they're using X. So let me ask y'all this. If you was doing the one that's in MathLab showing, what is your first X you would pick? All right, good job, Maya. There'd definitely be a 6 on that one, right? Because that 6 minus 6 is what would give me a 0 there. All right, y'all, let's plot ours. We're going to go up here, pick the V-shaped absolute value tool. You got to plot your 3, 0 first. So let's go to 3, 0. And then I had 4, 1. So over 4, up 1. There is the exact graph, right? Now, let me show you what happens if you did go out of order. Say I did my 4, 1 point first. So over 4, up 1. And then I did my 0, 3. Or my 3, 0. Well, y'all look at that. That don't look like our graph. Because it's treating this 4, 1 as the vertex. So that is why you definitely want to come in and do your vertex first and then your second point, okay? All righty, y'all, back to the pad. All right, so absolute value. So y'all, I just got one more style for you. And then the last one, number 8, is just like the x squared ones. So let me try this one first. X cubed plus 2. That is a cubic graph. In MathLab, we'll pick the little tool that looks like a squiggly line, but it's got 4 points on it, okay? So this is a 4-point cubic tool. So that means by hand, I need to find 4 x values. Now, y'all realize that this is a cube. So whatever x's we pick, we got to multiply it times itself 3 times and then add 2 to get our y value. So y'all, let me just say, I'm not even going to pick 5 on this one. Because if you pick a 5 for x, 5 times 5 times 5 is 125. Add 2 to that. That gives you 127 for your y value. Y'all, this MathLabs ain't going out that big, okay? So when you do a cubic, the easiest numbers would be a -1, 0, 1, and a 2. I don't even pick 3 because 3 times 3 times 3 is 27. Add 2 would make that 29, okay? So cubics can turn numbers big really quick. All right, so by hand, you put a -1 in. A negative number to an odd exponent will stay negative. So -1 times -1 is 1. 1 times -1 is -1. Plus my 2. -1 plus 2 gives us 1. Put in a 0. 0 cubed plus 2. We all 0 times 0 times 0 is 0 plus 2, which gives me 2. So y'all, why don't one of y'all put in a 1 for me and tell me what my y value is? So you're going to have y equals 1 cubed plus 2. Oh, that was quick. That's 3, right? Because 1 cubed is 1 plus 2, which does give us 3. So they're not symmetric like the parabolas were, okay? You get different numbers for those opposites there. How about if you put a 2 in, what do y'all get? So that is 2 cubed plus 2. All right, mine, that's good, right? 10. 2 times 2 is 4, times 2 is 8, and then 8 plus 2 give us a 10. So there's my 4 points I would plot. Um, Guess what? I can do this on the calculator. So let's clear everything off. Go to y equals and clear that off. So the way you put in a cube, the easiest way is to hit the X. Over here under the clear button, you see a little arrow upside down V. If you hit that, it goes up there to where my exponent is, and I put in my 3. Now you got to arrow right and get that cursor brought back down and put in your plus 2. Can you also use this little upside down V to put in exponents other than if you want to do the squares, you can hit that X squared button I showed you a while ago. All right, y'all, let me show you the graph. There's my little squiggly line coming up. If you want to get some table values, hit second graph. So y'all look at this. I use -1, 0, 1, and 2. But look at these. If you use the 7, that's 345 for your Y values. Um, Look how big them cubes get as you go down through these Y values. I mean, if you use the 10, your graph is going to go out to like 1,000 for those Y values, okay? So just scroll through it, get some nice small numbers you can plot. See, -2 wouldn't have been bad, but at -3, I started getting fairly larger numbers, okay? So let's go graph this in MathLab. Oh, they went -3. Okay, so graphing mine in here that I did. But yo, I would pick the same 4 numbers for that one, okay? So click the enlarge graph. Second row, click the 4-point cubic tool. And it don't matter what order you put. So let's go -1, up 1, 0, up 2, over 1, up 3, and then I had 210. Now it looks like a straight line, but watch this. When I do my 210, over 2, up 10, it makes my little squiggly line that matches the one we did on the calculator. So you would save that and be ready, okay? All right, y'all. So I won't work this one out as much, but the last one is y equals x squared plus 4. So x squared is still going to use the 3-point quadratic. If I was picking numbers by hand, I'd probably do -1, 0, and 1. I would plug them in and get my y values. So let's do this one real quick on a calculator. So I'm going to clear that, go to y equals and clear that. So I had x squared, so x. So last time I did the x squared button over here on the left side of the comma. This time I'll show you, I'm going to use this upside down V and put in my 2. Arrow right and come down and put in plus 4. Now I'll show you the table, second graph. Look, it's still symmetric. -1 and 1 both gave me 5. -2 and 2 both gave me 8. 0, 4 is pretty much that middle point in the little vertex part there. But you would plot 3 of these points. So let me do -1, 5, 0, 4, and 1, 5. So you're going to go to MathLab. It never gives me the same problem I'm doing. So let me click this, grab that U-shaped 3-point quadratic. So we had -1, 5, 0, 4, and then +1, 5. So y'all 3 points. Don't matter what order you put them on this graph, okay? It'll still give you your nice little parabola where it should be, okay? All right, so y'all just remember, absolute value tool looks like a V. The x squared parabolas look like parabolas with a U shape. The cubes were the little squiggly 4-point. And then the straight lines, remember we used the straight line tool, was just 2 points and a line. So y'all go by these examples when you're doing your problems. And like I said, the support, everything in the support section is a straight line if you got to graph it, okay? All right, y'all. So now I would ask y'all if y'all have any questions. So y'all feel good tonight? Feel like y'all can do me some graphs? So y'all going to have 8 of them for college algebra, remember? And then you'll have, I think, 5 maybe for support, okay? Remember, support will only be straight lines. So what we'll do, we won't do a support tonight because y'all really haven't done any homework yet to get fixed. So starting, let's see, what's tonight? Wednesday. So starting Monday when we start 2.2, if anyone's got problems on any of this homework for this week, I'll use the support to try to fix y'all in that, okay? So support won't be mandatory for you if you're doing your homework and keeping up. But if y'all get slack, and then I'll have to make y'all go. Luke, some people use Desmos, so if you want to use that to figure out your graphs and get your points, it'll do pretty much the same thing that I'm doing on the calculator. But here's the one thing you got to remember. When you're doing your test, it's not going to let you click over to another website on my test, okay? So on the test, you either need a physical calculator, or sorry, physical calculator, or if you're using Calculate 84 phone app for iPhone or the Calc 84 app for the Android, you can use those. Now, what I'll make you do though on my test, you're going to be on a camera. So on the test, you're going to have to show me a phone that's got that app, okay? If you show me you got the app 84, then I'll let that slide when you're doing my test with, I'm the one that looks at them anyway, so y'all be good to go, okay? All right, y'all, I'm just making sure I got everyone here. That one didn't come. So most of us are here. We got about 1, 2, 3, 4 that didn't show up. So we'll get on to them next class. All right, y'all, I'm going to stop this recording.